Is the attitude that is set for us. Even on the cross, He says these words, "Into your hands," speaking to the Father, "I commit my spirit." Everything in the life of Christ was about humility. He even chose not to exalt Himself. When you look at the life of Christ, He didn't walk around with a chip on His shoulders. He didn't walk around and introduce Himself, "I'm God." People came to those revelations, and Jesus wanted them to come to that revelation on their own. But He didn't have that chip on His shoulders. When people serve and give and sacrifice, it marks you in their eyes as a great person. But we don't need to do it in order to be seen by men. Jesus never exalted Himself as God. You see, self-exaltation always creates conflict. These 10 disciples were upset and they were hot. Just the same as when you in your family or in your workplace or in your church, if you exalt yourself, you will create disunity and displeasure among people in your home. But if you will come to your wife and come to your husband and say, "This year, this day, this week, I'm going to serve them like I've never served before," I wonder what would happen. I wonder what harmony would be created. We look in the Old Testament, we see a man named Absalom. And Absalom was a man who was David's son. The problem with Absalom wasn't that he wasn't, he was royalty and David did love him and the people did love him. But the problem with Absalom is he's got something in his heart to exalt himself, which is antichrist, which is the opposite of what we need in our life. We need to be the best servants that we can possibly be. And Absalom stood at the gate and said, "Listen, if I were your king, I would do this. If I were your king, I would do this, and y'all can come and bring your counsel to me, and I would give you the right answer, and basically I would love you and care for you and nurture you a lot more than my father David." Tries to strip the kingdom from his own father. Why? Because a spirit of self-exaltation. Absalom could have lived a long life, but instead he lost his life hanging from a tree somewhere. When you try to exalt yourself, you defeat the purpose of what God has called you to be. When I try to exalt myself, I defeat the purpose of what God has called me to be. For He's called me to serve you and to love you and to care for you and to sacrifice. Jesus said, if you want to be first, it says, "Whoever desires to be great among you shall be your servant. And whoever of you desires to be first shall be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve." It says, even Christ, even I came not to serve, but to be served, but to serve. And to give His life as a ransom for all. Could you imagine a holy God coming to you and telling you, "Take your sandals, take your shoes off, take your socks off, I'm going to wash your feet"? That's who He was. By this time when they had the Lord's Supper, they already got it. They already had the revelation of who He is. And the servant in the house was always the one that washed the feet. Everybody wore sandals for the most part. If they had sandals, they wore sandals. And their feet always got dirty on the dusty roads. And so whoever the servant of that house was, when you had a guest, they would be the one, take a pail of water and bend down and wash your feet clean. And Jesus comes along and says, "Take your sandals off, give me your feet," and begins to wash. Now we're not going to start a foot washing here, but I want you to understand this principle. This was the attitude of a holy God that says, "I'm leaving the throne room and all the blessings and all the things that are there because I love humanity, and I'm coming to show you this great example that I love you. And I love you so much that I'm willing to serve you." See, the greatest gift you could ever get in your life, if you've never given your life to Jesus, is to let Him serve you with salvation. there ain't a thing wrong with it. It's exactly what you need to let Jesus be your servant in that area. And when you do that, you need to make Him the Lord of your life. But you have to humbly come to Him and allow Him to make you clean.